back to season 2 and have a listen. But one of the points was the whole issue of, something you have, something you know, something you are. To me, that model needs to go away. And the reason is because of the equivalency fallacy.
Yeah.
Not all MFA are created equal.
We wind up counting the factors with no consideration of the strength of those factors. Hello and welcome to Root Causes, the PKI and Security podcast where a pair of industry veterans talk about all matters digital certificates and PKI. We're here at Toronto Sessions Season 3. I'm Tim Callan, Chief Experience Officer at Sectico, and of course, I'm here with Jason Sirocco, Senior Fellow at Sectico. So Jason, we're here for Toronto Sessions Season 3, and in Season 2, we coined a term which was multi-good factor authentication.
Yes. Every one of these seasons, I like to throw in a multi-factor authentication episode.
Yes, absolutely. So you can sit and laugh and point.
Exactly
say how
right.
awful it is. Yes.
That's right. Everybody, if you don't know my take on multi-factor authentication, go back to season 2 and have a listen. But one of the points was the whole issue of, something you have, something you know, something you are. To me, that model needs to go away. And the reason is because of the equivalency fallacy.
Yeah.
Not all MFA are created equal.
We wind up counting the factors with no consideration of the strength of those factors.
And so and you're the one who said it. And when I was rewatching that episode, I was like, I think season 3 we need to re-bring up, because it was a castaway term that you used. And I was like, that's too good to ignore. And instead of just saying multi-factor authentication,
right,
what you should be aspiring to is multi-good factor authentication.
That's right. And right, because there are good factors.
There are strong factors.
Yeah.
Much stronger than some others. And so if we're going to say something like something you are, something you know, something you have, something you're guessing at, something whatever, and that model should go away, what should be your new model? And your new model should be, I want to use multi-good factor authentication.
Right. So, for instance, if you need to connect with a device that has an expected certificate, that is a good factor.
That is a very strong factor.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. And so that should be okay.
Let's talk about what makes good.
Okay. Yeah. Good. What makes good?
I think top of the list, usability.
Okay.
Because if it's not friendly and easy to use, people aren't going to use it.
Yeah.
Or they'll complain, or they'll bypass it, or something.
Right.
And that also means the ability to be flexible in terms of, I lost my phone, right? If you're using an out-of-band factor,
right,
then you'd better be able to deal with what happens if that other factor gets lost.
I'm on a phone call. I'm talking to this person.
My battery died.
I've got to look up something in my email. I try to open my email on my phone because I'm, on the street, and it wants to call my phone, but I'm on the phone. Right?
Exactly.
Yes. Or I run out of battery. Yeah.
It's just unavailable, right? The ability to, even, employees come and go. Sometimes there's M&A in a company, and therefore, if it's not easy to deal with those real scenarios, then that's not a good factor, right? So a good factor can handle all that and delivers usability. Yeah. And it turns out, as complex as certificates are, Tim, there's nothing easier than walking into your workspace and having your phone automatically authenticate to a Wi-Fi access point with a certificate.
It's the best.
It's the best usability there is. There's nothing.
I open my laptop up, and my laptop is MFAing me invisibly to me.
Isn't it great that the strongest factors end up being the most usable?
Yeah. And so, I think usability is a great one, But then you also got the other word in there too, which is strength. Reliably actually authenticating and protecting from deliberate or accidental false positives.
There's an old term that I know I've stopped using it, but it's the Cadillac of authentication methods. We've got to come up with something. I got to come up with something better than that.
Yeah.
But it's the alpha dog of authentication methods. Period. In terms of strength,
Yeah.
there really is nothing better.
Oh, there's nothing better.
You and I have talked about biometrics. They're not a secret. So this is the third category. Make sure, as part of strength, you're using a factor which is proper secret. So therefore, OTP, one-time passcodes, they're a shared secret.
Yes.
They're a weak secret.
Yes. They are for sure. They're a weaker secret than a biometric, in my opinion.
Precisely. Your eye is not a secret. Your fingerprints are not a secret.
Right. But it's harder to get. So yes, my fingerprint's not a secret. However, ain't no script kiddie in Vietnam going to be stealing my fingerprints. But an OTP, maybe not the case.
Well, a bribed bartender
Right.
will get your fingerprints.
Oh, absolutely. And so I think this is an important thing. It's part of it too, is to a small degree. I mean, what these things you're saying, I think at a macro level, absolutely applicable. To a small degree, I do think they're situational.
And let's remind everybody,
Right.
we say this on every MFA episode.
Yeah.
Any MFA is better than nothing.
Right. If I am employed at a high value target and an advanced persistent threat might be interested in that target, then you bet someone might lift a glass. It doesn't even have to be a bribed bartender. They could just be sitting next to me. Someone might lift a glass to get my fingerprint, for sure, right? If I'm just me at home and somebody wants to get into my savings account and get my paltry little few $1,000s in my savings account, nobody's going to be doing that. So it kind of depends on what you're protecting.
Which is why
Right.
I am a big believer in biometrics for PIN replacements.
Yeah, right.
That's the perfect usage for
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
I'm not saying don't use it.
Yeah.
You're saying use it appropriately.
Yeah.
And I totally
And I
agree.
agree, right? Yeah, absolutely. So I think in this world, rules of thumbs are extremely helpful, and we should codify them and bear them in mind. I think we should also understand that they're rules of thumb, and there can be circumstances where we need to reconsider.
That's it.
Right.
That's it.
All right.
One of the rules of thumb that we're trying to deal with on this podcast is that, oh, well, if I have any MFA, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
And that's not the truth. What you just said is the critical message of this podcast. Think
Yeah.
when you're employing your MFA. That's why we're trying to make you think, what's good? What's multi good factor authentication? Okay, so here's one more, Tim.
Okay.
Let's talk about assuming that your endpoint is compromised.
Okay.
You should still have multi-good factor authentication. And therefore, what makes a good factor is one that is not going to be hampered by or is not as affected by a compromised endpoint.
Okay.
Therefore, out of band.
Sure.
Out of band factors are how you deal with that. And so I remember back in the day, we're talking like 2010 to 2015 era,
Okay.
where people thought I was completely insane. People who should have known better thought I was completely insane for saying, I think smartphones are going to end up being one of the strongest factors, right? You could put a certificate on a phone. You can put it in a secure element. Remember, secure elements weren't even
That's right.
that available back then.
Right.
And people said, "Oh well, it's phones can just be completely compromised," and so therefore, the thinking back then was that the laptop was stronger than the phone from a security standpoint. And I knew that was going to be wrong in the future. And boy, oh boy, okay, sometimes, I'll toot my horn. I was right. I was right to say that not all MFA are created equal, and the best MFAs are the ones that are certificate-based using out of band on a phone.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be true.
Right.
So there's something that's interesting here in that there's some fallacies of thought that people still to this day, there are some people who think my work laptop is more secure than my phone from the standpoint of holding a secret. And it's just, everything now has secure elements, and it's the secure elements. Don't point at the device itself. It's the secure elements on the device that have changed. So therefore, you have to rethink where your secrets are being stored. So it's not just the strength of the secret, it's the strength of where the secret is stored.
So in all fairness, in that regard, your laptop has gotten better.
It has. There was a period of time where that was not true.
Oh, sure.
Windows 11.
And probably many of those still out there.
Remember, Windows 11 forced it.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And that's fairly recent.
Yep. Sure is.
So yes, we've entered a new era where everything's way more secure in terms of storing that critical secret. Okay. And so that, to me, Tim, it's a short list, but that is the list of good in terms of good factors for good factor authentication.
That's good. And I think that's a good way to consider it.
And I think, Tim, in the future, we're going to talk about how secure elements change the game. But not only that, a lot of people might think, well, what happens if I'm now using my phone to do critical authentication itself without my laptop? Well, is that really truly out of band? Am I trusting the endpoint being the phone? If I'm trusting the secret and the endpoint being in the same place, is using that form factor on a smartphone, is that problematic? And what I would say is secure elements changed that game. In other words, the user zone where you're doing the authenticating is separate from where the secret is stored sufficiently that the bad guy can't really take advantage of the fact that the secret is adjacent to the authenticating. And that was some cognitive dissonance people had. They simply didn't understand the way things worked.
Right. All right. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Tim.
This has been Root Causes.